Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. This is Joseph Katz, and I'm here again with one of my favorite people, Mary Crean. How are you doing today, Mary?
How am I doing? I'm doing great. And I love that you said I'm one of your favorite people. That really means a lot to me. So I
love hanging out with you on doing these shows.
Yeah, same was, we recorded one earlier and you weren't able to join. And I was like, but I understand you're busy, but I'm glad you're here, especially for this particular guest.
Well, so we have an interesting guest, right?
She's interesting. She's also been on before. So she was so super fantastic that we said, you must come on again. Because she has so many cool things to share and she's had some transformation in what she's doing, and why not?
So tell us, who is our guest today, Mary?
So her name is Jennifer Monness, and she's the founder and director of JLM Wellness. So that's changed a little bit, the name of her company. She's continuously transforming. Jennifer specializes in customized wellness programs for employees and executives dealing with workplace stress. But beyond the corporate world, Jennifer also dedicates herself to sharing these vital wellness practices, reaching older adults within nonprofit organizations. And this is really cool and also heartwarming that she helps individuals navigate illness in a wider audience through her own community classes, which are open to all. She's a graduate of instead of me talking about her. So Jennifer, welcome to Prime Life Podcast once again. Please tell our audience a little recap so they can get updated on what you've been up to.
Thank you. It's so good to be back. Yes, last time I was here, the name of my company was the Meditation Lab, and we talked about that a lot. My primary focus for a good decade was going into schools, particularly in education settings, middle school, high school, and even university level, and sharing specific strategies all around mindfulness and meditation with students of all ages. And at that time, it was actually my daughter who helped me name the company, because she felt like, oh my gosh, we have science labs, chem labs, bio labs. How great would it be to have a meditation lab? And it fit. But when I started to make this expansion or shift into the corporate space and working with older adults, I think meditation, it was too narrow for what I was providing. And for so many, there was such misconception about what meditation was and what it wasn't, that it created a bit of a barrier. Maybe that's the best way I can say it. So we felt it was important to expand the name and shift the name to just embrace all things wellness, which is what I do. I teach mindful movement, breath work, meditation, mindset journaling, like a whole host of tools that help individuals at all age and stages, both personally and professionally, better manage, the overwhelm that we all experience in our everyday lives.
Before Joseph jumps in, I hope you don't mind, Jennifer, but I do love one story that you told when you were at Nassau Financial Group sometime. And it was about...
I'm already smiling because I know what you're going to say.
Do you know the story? Yes. I want you to share that, because not just because I want you to drop names, very important names I may add. Oh, you really experienced that, Jennifer? So just start off with that quick story, and then Joseph, you can jump right in.
So I've had the opportunity to work at a lot of large organizations, and that has certainly been something that always fuels me, because it gives me an opportunity to be in front of large audiences. And usually I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected, because I've got the tools and I meditate every day and I know my breathing practices. But that said, I do work for the NBA, and they had called me in and said, we would love you to come and speak. We have our annual conference to a group of women that work with us in the organization. And my nature is just to say, great, I'm in without getting a lot of you know me so well, like without getting a lot of background or basic information about what this was. I'm like, count me in, I'm yours. So they said, we're happy to have a car service come pick you up and bring you in. I said, oh, that sounds lovely. So, but even that didn't give me the scope of what exactly I was walking into. But okay, so here we go. So I arrive at the Sheraton and someone meets me and escorts me into the green room to prep me and get ready. And Gail King is in the green room, and we've been told that Chelsea Clinton is going to be arriving, you know, within the next hour. And I'm to discover that I am sandwiched in between those two extraordinary human beings as like the little like mid session reset and to talk about these practices. And truly, no matter how many years I've been breathing and meditating and all the things, there I was having a complete meltdown in the green room. And so I I took an extra 20 minutes to settle myself because I was there super early. And yet still, right, once you hit that space of fight or flight, which we'll talk about, you know, deeper into this conversation, it's very hard, right? Once you're feeling that host of physical sensations and feedback to manage that. So I had a handler who took me backstage, and the well, I'm kind of giving it away, but one of my like all-time favorite techniques is one in which we place our head below our heart because it gives a little stretch to the back of the neck, and there are these baroreceptors, and it regulates our blood pressure. But oftentimes if we don't have a desk, we have to do a forward bend. We actually have to, you know, drop our head below our heart. And so my handler is like on the like walkie-talkie or had some sort of mic in her ears, and she was like, we may have a problem. The meditation teacher is like, you know, folded over, like next to me. I'm not, and I was like, no, it's okay. This is actually just part of my process. But in any event, it really did,
I
and
love
I'm
that
smiling as I
story.
tell the story, but it really did work. So it is not just about breath work, although that's important, and meditation, although that's essential. But oftentimes, what I'm sharing with people is the way in which we position our body can help us regulate our emotions and our energy. And so it's all these pieces together. And to your point, it's why the meditation lab just wasn't the right name to really embrace what it was that I was putting out there.
It's funny that you said you were sandwiched between those two individuals because a lot of our listeners are sandwiched between people as well. So I just to take us back a quick second, and I think you already hinted at an exercise we'll do together on the show, but maybe for our audience who didn't listen to the first episode, which shame on them, you can find it in the archives, define what meditation, define mindfulness, because meditation obviously is a piece of that, but maybe just start with the definition of that and how you work with people.
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
I think that's a great question. There's so many ways to define mindfulness, and obviously you can look at it in a dictionary and get a very formal definition. But I would say, Joseph, and just to back up, sometimes it's like, I don't know, like reading the ingredients of your favorite meal. It'll tell you what's in it, but it doesn't really get you to sense how it tastes until you experience it yourself. So mindfulness for me is really just about waking up to your own life, even though that's not what you'll read as the formal definition from John Kabat-Zinn. the idea is that we go through our day and we perform certain habits or patterns, even if it's just your drive to work and you drive the same way each and every time, and you kind of know every turn and you know every pothole, you're almost doing it in your sleep. And so as a result of that, you're not actively noticing new things. You're a little bit, I'm just putting this in quotes for the listeners that can't see me, but you're a little bit checked out or you're on autopilot. Um, Mindfulness invites us to be more present in the moment without the overlay of our thoughts and our emotions, and sometimes even overwhelming physical sensations. And that's a point. It's like this, I don't know, it's like an art almost of like re anchoring yourself in the moment, pulling attention back, not with like a harsh tug, but almost like in a soft, curious, and loving way to what's happening right here and right now. And so, whether that's noticing things that you see or that you hear or that you smell or taste, touch, right? The sensory experience is probably the most direct way to enter this place of being mindful, which is paying attention on purpose to whatever we want to be paying attention to through that kind and curious and compassionate lens.
Just to jump in with a follow-up, you mentioned
Yeah.
without emotion. Would you also add without judgment?
Yes, without question, without judgment. I think that it's so natural that, let's say, even being mindful about physical pain, and I get this with people that I work with, all my age and above, and I'm 57, so there's a little disclaimer there, but aches and pains in the body, right? How do we navigate pain when we're also filled with a lot of the dialogue around the pain? And so that's kind of what we're teasing out, right? I'm aware of the physical sensation, maybe it's burning, pulsing, throbbing, but then there's this whole other narrative like, why did I walk that extra mile? I knew that wasn't a good idea. I always end up getting hurt when I do that. And when we're caught in that narrative as well, that's when there's the suffering component beyond it, which actually makes the pain worse. That said, taking time to savor good things, to let sweet moments land, to appreciate that there are so many times during the day that really do provide us with a lot of pleasure, even though there is a lot of pain that we all navigate in our lives emotionally and personally, physically and emotionally. But the first sip of morning coffee, if that's something you like to drink in the morning, or it happens to be a nice, beautiful day outside. It's not 96 if you live in New York. So the warmth on your skin without feeling overwhelmed by heat, or the sound of your granddaughter's laughter. These are all things that oftentimes we're moving so quickly through our day that we don't have an opportunity to really like pause and savor. It's a practice.
So, how long does this practice need to take effect? In other words, what you said, I thought that was a beautiful example. I loved it because focus on the positive, perhaps the little things. And believe it or not, my other half is quite good at that. And I give him credit, and I don't always tell him when he has trouble like calming down or even sleeping. He tells me that he thinks about his parents who are no longer with us. He thinks about his grandparents that are no longer with us and things they used to do together that he loved. So again, it's going back to that. What did I love? What made me feel good? But on a daily basis, we're all, running like the wind. You have a good sized family, Jennifer. You're running your business, etc. So how can we stop? How can we teach ourselves to stop and kind of do what you just suggested in a way that doesn't overwhelm us and say, oh, there's no way, I don't have time, or that sounds too feely, or
I think there's two things to point out. The first is even just showing up and listening to this conversation and understanding that the nature of the mind is to worry and plan and ruminate. It's all designed in this way of keeping us safe. I think we call that the default network mode. So if we know that the nature of the mind is to spot threats and keep us safe and to always be planning and worrying and reliving and problem solving, that's a big one for me. That's step one. Okay, this is what my mind loves to do. And then step two is, what are some little, like, quick, simple techniques that I can weave or integrate into my day based on what my day looks like? And that's a lot of the work that I'm doing one-on-one with individuals. So I'll go into a company and we'll have these conversations and I'll make a presentation. And then, like when I work with Estee Lauder, then I'm working with individuals one-on-one to talk specifically about their life and their lifestyle and how some of these strategies could be useful. It can be as simple as just noticing your posture and feeling your seat on the floor, connecting to the sensation of the physical body. We know that when we move a muscle, we change a thought, right? The answer to anxiety is action. So some sort of physical movement is helpful or useful. For others, it's more of the mindset piece, and your husband probably does. Some people come by it more naturally than others. But even in a workshop I did yesterday, I asked people, this was like the icebreaker, rather than, and I used to do this all the time, like, oh, give us a sense of your emotional weather this morning, right? Describe in a word what your emotional weather was. It happened to be so hot yesterday that I was doing work with the American Red Cross volunteers. And I knew that was a bad question because everyone's just going to say, my weather is hot. But when we talked about share one thing in the past 24 hours that brought you joy, all you're asking people to do is redirect or whatever they're thinking about in this moment. When they're invited to answer that question, it brings them to a different place, right? So that could be an inquiry that you're dropping into, into your mind at any time. Maybe it's even putting a little reminder app on your, a little note on your phone and your calendar that's like, oh, Mary, 4:00. This is when you get a little bit, a little bit restless or anxious or overwhelmed. Why don't you take 3 deep breaths and reset? Now, there's an app even on, I think there's like a little notification on Calm, or sometimes even on my phone, it'll just say breathe and it'll be a reminder. That's helpful. And other times, more personal notes or feedback for myself, at least, is useful. And I do have hours of my day based on my own internal energy where things are more chaotic than others. So I want to give you a chance to respond to that. But that's an important piece of the one-on-one work. Some of us have more earth, some have more wind, some have more fire. And because of that, there's going to be times in the day where we're most focused and effective. That's great. But times where we're most restless or agitated, or a little fiery, angry, dull, lethargic. It's all a matter of creating, we're not creating balance, because that's a tall task, but we are balancing. That's a better way to say it.
I liked how you described, you said earth, wind, and fire.
Yeah. Yes.
That of course tickled me, but I hadn't quite heard it that way. How about you, Joseph?
Well, I think she was just dating herself to pop culture there.
Well, I'm dating myself too, quite frankly. But that's an interesting way to think about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the elements are obviously very important in a lot of this mindfulness world. We've used stress a few times, workplace stress, stress in lives. People think when they stop working, they're going to have less stress, or maybe some people do, some people don't. I don't know. Work does create more stress than many other situations. Obviously, family stress. So I want to tee you up for something here, but I'd love for you to answer the question leading up to this activity. So what's the best way to identify, when you're in a stressful moment, using mindfulness, I guess, techniques to say, oh, wait, I'm stressed out right now. And maybe you can share with our listeners a quick activity that we can all do together to de-stress.
I love that. So,
and I will remember to breathe.
Yeah, good. Let's start with a couple things, because I love the teeing it up. It's an important conversation before we even dive into the tools. Stress is a universal experience. Stress has gotten a bad rap. There's no question about that. There are 2 types of stress: eustress and distress. And this is a lot of the work that I'm lecturing on when I go into organizations, because people need to understand that, right? When that which gets me up in the morning and gets me moving a little more quickly if I'm running late, that creates adrenaline so that I am ready for this podcast, that I've done the work that I need to be doing. I feel a little bit of jitters inside me and I'm, getting myself amped up. That's a good stress. Without that, I might have been late to show up for this moment. I might not have been prepared, and all the things. The challenge is, or that which we need to look out for, is when those moments are extended over prolonged periods of time. So I'm living up in that arousal space with high adrenaline not only for a day, but maybe multiple days, particularly if, let's say, I'm navigating a loved one who is going through a life-defining illness and I'm the provider. And so I'm like on high alert all the time. That's when we shift from this eustress, which is the good stress, to distress, which is the bad stress. Oftentimes, I like to talk to the people I work with one-on-one and say, when you view a situation in your life as one in which you don't feel like you have the resources to cope with it, that's when we've got a challenge, right? That's when there's overwhelm. So this is important to say because Mary knows, but I do have 6 children. My house is nothing but a big bag of crazy. Even though they're older now, kids are home for the summer, college kids are home. That's a big adjustment for me. But that said, I am used to a certain level of chaos. That's what I've lived in for, 28 years. If Mary walked into my house, she would find that exact same environment that I can navigate fairly comfortably to be overwhelming. And if I walked into Nassau and attempted to live a single hour of Mary's life as a professional there, and she's extraordinary at what she does, I would find that to be overwhelming as well. So again, what we view as overwhelming, it's not important. It's just once we're in that moment when we're in fight or flight and it's happening for prolonged periods of time, that's when we have to start worrying about our health. So I thought that was important to lead with that. Our minds are constantly interpreting things. So the way I interpret them, even from my background, the way I was parented, could be different than someone else's. Folks that are constantly worrying, you have people in your life who are constantly a sense of unease. Everyone, there's different ingredients to this. But those that are able to zoom out and be aware of that monologue that's kind of always in their head and like bullying them or pushing them around, those are the people that have the edge as in terms to managing stress. As well, we have to note that as we age with hormonal changes, many of us find ourselves more easily overwhelmed, more easily dysregulated, experiencing a loss of focus, not only to mention being bombarded by things that are on the news and your phones and all those other pieces. And sometimes that makes mental chatter harder to manage too. So I'm giving all of this as a backdrop to say it's a tall order to say that we're always, as I said, going to be in balance all the time. But these are tools that I believe truly can be helpful to move to that place of balancing. And I mean, should I take us through one or should I pause for a moment? Right? It would be good to go
yeah,
through one.
I'd say absolutely. I know.
Okay.
I was looking at Joseph a few times. Got to fix my posture. That was a really good explanation, and I think you set the stage well. So thank you for that.
Good. So a couple things. There is movement that we can do to bring energy up or down. I'll start with that conversation. If we bend forward, if we bring our head below our heart, we're going to slow things down. That's just a fact, right? The baroreceptors in the back of the neck are going to send a message to the brain, you're safe, and you can start to relax. If we take our body and we move in a little bit of a back bend, maybe if I took my arms out to the side and I tip my chest up, that's going to bring energy up. So I'm going to choose the former, not the latter, for a body movement that we'll do together. And I'm also going to take us through a very specific breathing practice. And I'd like to set the table for our listeners that's going to invite us to notice the feeling of the breath in the body. That's number one. So like nose, chest, belly, it's going to be like more dominant for Mary in one place than for me. But then to very deliberately say, wherever I'm noticing it most clearly, my job is to now bring it down to the belly. Why? Diaphragmatic breathing allows us to slow and settle things down. To go a step further, not to be too anatomy based, but when we take a long exhale, our diaphragm moves back to its original position, kind of hugging up against the bottom of the heart. As a result, the heart can't beat as quickly because it's like a little more crowded. And that's why those long, slow exhales are essential when we're trying to regulate and ground ourselves. Okay, so our listeners, I'll lead you all through a practice where we're going to count the beats to the inhale, we're going to count the beats to the exhale, And what's most important is that that exhale is longer than the inhale. Okay, so those are the two little things we're going to do together. The first, head below heart, invites us to stack our fists, one and then the other. It looks a little funny. You're going to rest your fists like on a desk or some surface and set your forehead on the fists. Why? That positioning brings me into a little chin tuck, right? And it allows me to stretch the back of my neck. Beautiful. So just here, begin with some slow, easy breaths. Inhaling to the top and exhaling to the bottom. Just let the breath happen naturally. You don't have to try too hard. Inhaling slowly and exhaling fully. You may choose to let the breath move in through the nose and out through the lips, almost like you were blowing out candles on a birthday cake. That helps us lengthen the out breath and slow things down. And you might even find here, if the mind is particularly restless, that counting breaths is particularly helpful. So sometimes I'll just say in, 1, in, 2, in, 3. And you continue on your own. Maybe you make your way to 10. And anytime you find the mind wandering, which more than likely you will, you just say, come back, or not now. And you bring yourself back to the inhale and the count and the exhale. Good. Now from here, you can roll all the way back up to sit. You may want to close your eyes for this one. Place one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And then I'll invite you to enjoy some more nice, easy breaths. Just notice where you feel the sensation of the breath most clearly. So for some, it's at the nose. For others, it's at the chest. And for others, it's at the belly. Wherever you notice those sensations most clearly, it might even be useful or helpful to drop in a little adjective or two that describes that feedback, whether it's pulsing or tingling, pressure, movement, rising, falling, whatever it is. And then all I'll ask you to do is bring both hands down to the belly. And I want you to send the breath down to the belly. Allow the abdomen to inflate like a balloon as you breathe in, and then to soften or deflate as you breathe out. We call this balloon breathing, right? Sending the focus and the awareness down to the belly as you inhale and as you exhale. And in this final little piece of the exercise, we can count the beats to the in-breath and count the beats to the out. Sometimes I say those numbers very softly and sweetly to myself. In, 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. And if your breath is a little longer or a little shorter, that's okay. Kind of notice how it's appearing and how it's changing. And if you're finding that you're a little agitated or restless or anxious, then lengthening that out breath by 2 beats, or 3, or even 4 if you can, is incredibly useful. So if I'm breathing in for 4, and you can count that in your head, then maybe I explore breathing out for 6, or 7, or 8. So just take 30 more seconds and play with that. Doing this gives our brain like this little mini breaks, just simply noticing, paying attention on purpose to this act of breathing, right? Without judgment. When you're ready, lower your chin to your chest. This is a way to transition. Maybe you kind of give your legs a little massage. Maybe you rock a little side to side. And that's when you can slowly open your eyes and reorient into the space. But please take your time. Mary's smiling.
I was going to say good morning, Mary.
No, I feel so relaxed now.
But hopefully, and the intention is to put a lot of things out there. And then maybe there's just one piece of that, one component of that that resonated or landed. Then that's what you would be integrating into your day.
When you do exercises like this with individuals, what kinds of things do they say when they're done? Like, oh, I feel rested. You're right. I was smiling. I feel happy.
Rested is a big one. I think people feel like reset. They feel like they've been able to push a reset button in some way. And for some, they'll say they feel a little more regulated, a little more, not just calm. I don't like to use words like calm and peaceful because that's not even the goal. That's probably not even realistic in all that's going on. But if you feel a little more settled, right, then that's a good thing. And that is a superpower in and of itself. Not only that you have that feeling state, but then there's a whole other conversation, which I don't even know if we have time for, about like how these practices impact your brain and different lobes of the brain that allow you to focus or concentrate, sustain attention, that allow you to learn and memorize information and then, share or recite that information more clearly. So there are a lot of things that are happening internally to the network, the cognitive network, so to speak, as well as just how we're feeling physiologically.
So that cognitive network is important, I think, especially as we age. And you're right. Maybe that's another episode to really go into detail. But I don't know, Joseph, what questions do you have for Jennifer?
Well, the whole cognitive science piece is definitely a whole nother.
But it's an important one.
Yeah. No,
so I'm glad you brought it up.
As it relates to some of the cognitive decline. I was just going to ask Jennifer, as we get towards the end of this session here, two things. One, if she has any, parting thoughts, pieces of advice, suggestions, takeaways, what have you, for our listeners, and also for her to share the best way people get in touch with her. And then I'll hand it over to you, Mary, to ask the final question.
Okay, Joseph.
So my thoughts are that consistency is everything. And one of my favorite teachers, Jeff Warren, talks about this idea of meditating every day. That's obviously a tall task, but so he says, let's think of it as like daily-ish, right? Most days. Consistency, I can't emphasize that enough. Just like if you were going to the gym, going once a week probably is not as effective as even just smaller amounts, but more regularly. Mindfulness is the same way because it's a skill that we're building. So every time we notice that our mind's wandered and we gently bring it back, that's like our little bicep curl for our brains. Okay, so let's lead with that. Small bits, pieces, I call them like little mindfulness snacks, right? Even if it's just 30 seconds, like noticing your breath before you enter into a room or before you respond to an email. In fact, I worked with a group of doctors at Columbia, and we talked about having your hand on the doorknob before you enter the patient's room. Maybe it's just, the doorknob feels cool or shiny or whatever it is. And that's a moment to recollect before you enter into a certain situation, because even just simply noticing little things can make a huge difference in the way that you feel and respond to your day. Remember, we don't have to do the breathing techniques or the movement techniques. We can be aware and be mindful if we're taking a walk, if we feel our feet underneath the ground, or if we're eating a meal and we're slowing down and noticing how the food feels in our mouth and the sensations and the flavors. even when we're having this conversation, right? If I'm being mindful, I'm really paying attention and noticing Mary smiling or Joseph nodding or whatever that is. That's a moment where I am practicing, even though it may not feel, formal, so to speak.
For the record, I can nod and smile at the same time.
Yeah. But I do think, Joseph, I think that we all need the support of a coach. I mean, myself included. And so that's how I view myself, whether it's in group classes or working one-on-one. The coach is almost like your partner and helps you implement the plan, so to speak. And so sitting down and identifying, as I said, times of day when you have the different feelings that you have, and then placing or weaving in different practices that I think would be the best to help you be, to help one be balancing is what it's all about. And really creating like practical, sustainable routines. That would be the last piece. And a fourth episode altogether is like how we go about like integrating these new healthy habits into our day. It's like great. We hear the podcast, we're inspired, it sounds great, but it's like, so what is the science really behind? And like James Clear obviously is the expert on that. Like, how do we take these things that we know are good for us, but really actually, make them a part of the day? That's a lot of the work that I do, whether it's on Zooms virtually one-on-one in community classes that people from all over the country, join in on, or working directly with organizations to provide that level of programming. For instance, DeRote is a big one. I'm with DeRote twice a week, working with up to 120 older adults who join Zoom classes to not just sit and close their eyes, but receive the message of the week and to leave with some tools and strategies that are movement-based, breath work, all the things. You can see I need like 2 hours I need like 6.
It's
I'm not done.
a lot of good conversation.
You need your own show.
She does. Yes, absolutely. So Jennifer, what's the best way for individuals to get a hold of you if they want to get in touch? And then I'll ask you the final question.
Good. Whether it is my email, which I'm sure is somewhere we can put in the chat, and the website, which is jlmwellness.com, there is an opportunity to just in the contact us site, right, that I will get that direct notification that you're looking for some level of feedback, which you can actually specify. There's a clear way to request that, whether it's for your company to bring me into your organization, to work one-on-one, to bring me into a not-for-profit, or even a hospital setting. I do a lot of work there.
Yeah, I love that you do work across industries and your experience is very diverse with individuals and groups and all of that's very interesting. So I'm going to ask you a different last question than before, which is more about your why. On your personal journey, if you could bottle up one moment or learning experience from all of this and carry it with you forever, what would that be?
I'm going to ask for a follow-up to be specific. On my personal journey, those who have influenced me or just a certain moment or experience?
You pick it.
I pick it. Wow. I think what's really interesting on the personal journey is we hear about this. I mean, I hear about this all the time when I'm listening on social media and podcasts that failing is really the best way to be learning. And I'll share with you that when my son was 8, he was in a karate class. And at the end of the class, everyone got together. And he's 8, this is 20 years ago. And the Shihan said to the parents, oh, and the kids, okay, kids, what do we say every day when we end class? Sometimes you win and sometimes you, and I was like, lose. And the Shihan looks at me and the kids all look at me and they're like, no, it's learn. I'm like, oh, right. Of course it's learn. Right. So even in the moments where professionally it's been challenging, where I felt like there were obstacles, where I felt like all I want to do is communicate this message, but I can't get people to open their doors to me, there was always something for me to learn about myself or about the moment. And even in moments where I wasn't the best version of myself and was discouraged and like relived it and beat myself up about it, that allowed me to teach me a lesson too about how to better plan and how to better prepare myself. So it's show yourself some grace, right? We are all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all doing the best we can. This whole idea that these practices are going to make your life perfect or help you find balance and calm and ease, that's the language that makes me nervous or uncomfortable. we are balancing, we're working towards a more relaxed way of approaching our life and day. And there's going to be a lot of ups and downs and a lot of lessons to learn, not things no, that we're losing, just that we're learning.
I think that's wonderful. Joseph, do you want to bring us home?
Sure thing, Mary. Jennifer, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
calming moments, your insights, your tips. Appreciate you taking the time to join Mary and myself today. To all of our listeners, thanks for tuning in. I highly recommend, if you get a chance, to like us, share this episode, share our podcast with the world. We value feedback, so get in touch with us if you'd like to share thoughts. And until next week, have a great time, and see you soon.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.